Well, now it is time for the player to watch presented by FanDuel Sports Network. And our player to watch this week is Shedeur Sanders. And I know when you say that, you're going to go, what? This is Baseball America's, jump the shark here. What are we doing here? We're trying to shamelessly, attract the headline of the day and all that. But it's not actually that. What we wanted to talk about today is we just came off of the NFL draft. We obviously cover the MLB draft, and they're very different. The NFL draft, more popular a little bit, but also it's a draft that allows trading. It allows there's a lot more, I would say, subterfuge, a lot more reason to mislead, to lie, and we saw that somewhat. Which we saw Shedeur Sanders, who everyone watching all the public evaluations had Shedeur Sanders as a first round, maybe second round at the latest prospect. He went in the fifth round. I can tell you, I'll kind of bring Ben in on this as well, but that is our nightmare. For the baseball draft, ours is kind of the opposite version of this, because in the baseball draft, the whole world is basically almost eligible. You have high school players, you have junior college players, you have college players who are all eligible. And our rule is we know at some point in the draft, before it's over, there's going to be players who are drafted who we didn't have scouting reports on, we didn't have in our rankings. But it can't happen on day one. Day one, that second round, especially even into the third, we have to have nailed every one of those. And I've had nightmares over the years of I guess is the opposite. The baseball version of this would be that a player is picked at pick 35 or whatever, and it's like, who is that? Which the closest thing we've had to that was that pandemic year and Evan Carter, who we did not have on our rankings, but at the same time, we did have notes on him at least. But Ben, I guess that's the baseball version of it, that we just can't. We have to have reports on all these guys. But the other thing about this is I do feel like that the baseball draft, the way it's done and all, makes it less likely that there is going to be a surprise like that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, we see guys fall. Typically, it's a high school player due to signability reasons, right? So, like Rock Chalowski a couple years ago, he could have gone in the top 2 rounds, but he had a huge asking price, and he falls down boards and just goes undrafted. Well, it's not because teams didn't like him. He just had a huge asking price and said, if you don't meet it, I'm going to go to UCLA. And now he's looks like a top 10 overall pick probably for next year. So it's usually something like that, or there's some major medical issue, obviously, usually for a pitcher that would cause a player to drop. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of times it's the other way around, where a team drafts a player way higher than where we thought he was going to go. I mean, I think the one that stands out to me the most is back in 2010. The Cubs used their first round pick that year, number 16 overall, to draft a college right-hander named Hayden Simpson from Southern Arkansas. We had him ranked 191. He never made it out of A-ball. That draft had a couple guys who were drafted way ahead of where we had them ranked. Jake Skoll, a high school outfielder, went 15th overall to the Rangers, ranked 201. High school shortstop Cito Culver went 32nd overall to the Yankees, ranked 168. You do have cases, too, where it's worked out well for the team. Ryan Mountcastle to the Orioles being one example. But there is something to that wisdom of the crowd, right? Where, all right, yes, it can be polluted by groupthink and other factors that can cloud that approach. But if a team deviates so far off of the rest of the industry on a pick, there's, I'm sure, a chance maybe they found some competitive advantage or outworked the rest of the industry on that player who's maybe being undervalued. But there's also just a really good chance that you're just not that much smarter than everybody else in the game.
So, Geoff, the other thing with that is the MLB draft, with the exception of compensatory picks, which can be traded before the draft, not during the draft, no pick trading in the draft, probably I would say is a key factor. And there's less, when we're talking to teams, when we're talking to agents, when we're talking to kind of everyone involved in this in the weeks leading up to the draft, there's less reason there's not a real huge advantage to lie if you're a team that knows that, okay, that guy's not going to be in a range for us to pick. If we're saying how do you line up the top of the board and you're picking 25, you're not saying, oh, we think this guy's terrible because you think he's going to slide to 25. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think the pick trading, and there's obviously the scale of coverage and interest in the MLB and the draft in particular versus the NFL draft, which drew, I think, more viewership than the NBA Finals did last year. That did include the Celtics, which has a big fan base. So, like, I think when you put it into perspective, some of that kind of plays into it. The other part of it is a lot of these guys have a very big microphone out there. So they do have the ability to, potentially impact and sway value, or, putting out misinformation probably goes a lot further than, if, anyone on staff here at BA or, ESPN, Fangraphs, some of the other publications that cover the draft heavy. Like, I just don't think that it would have the same impact. And I think teams would probably see right through it. I think the other part of it too is just how the NFL draft in particular is covered. There's so many people that do mock drafts. The tape on players, because they're all coming through the same exact pipeline as opposed to multiple sort of different funnels into the draft, like an MLB. You have an opportunity to watch a lot of these players. So there's a lot of just like firsthand accounting and rankings. And maybe some of these guys, and I don't know Mel Kiper Jr.'s process in particular, maybe there's some differences in terms of them not necessarily taking the word of scouts throughout the game, or they're just not as easily accessible or readily found at the field, etc. Through that process. So it's kind of interesting, I think, just comparing and contrasting how the two things are covered in particular, but obviously there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
Yeah, Ben, you
there's
wanted to
also
ask
just no equivalent in baseball to drafting a quarterback, right? Like in baseball, you could use your first round pick on a player who's at a position that you're already set with on your major league team, whether it's a high school player who's going to be, 3, 5 years away from helping you in the big leagues, or a college player who might be up in the next year or two, where the Astros have Carlos Correa, who's their rookie shortstop in 2015, rookie of the year that year. And the same year they draft Alex Bregman, shortstop out of LSU, second overall. Okay, who cares? Move him to third base. You can move a guy to second base. You can move players around to different positions. And the timetable for when those players are actually ready to play in MLB compared to NFL draft picks is just so much different. But if you're an NFL team and you already have a good quarterback, it's not like shortstop or even catcher where you can just take the best player available on your board. At least probably not with your first round pick, and probably your next pick too. So I can see why a player who slides like that would be a quarterback. Whereas in baseball, if we have a college player like Garrett Mitchell in 2020, we had him ranked number 6 in the draft class that year. He falls to the back of the first round. The Brewers are picking at 20. It's not like they're saying, hey, we already have outfielders, we're all set. Like, no, they're they're going to say, hey, this is really good value for us, regardless of who else they have at that position, either in the major league team or throughout their farm system.
One other thing that I think that is kind of worth at least noting on our end is that the way we do it at Baseball America is, this is not the Carlos Collazo or the Ben Badler or the J.J. Cooper or the Geoff Pontes, draft rankings. We all have guys who we are higher or lower on in our personal beliefs than where we have them ranked on the board. But what we do at Baseball America is our goal is to try to, as best we can, reflect how the mass of the industry, how the 30 MLB teams line these guys up. Obviously, not all teams agree on every player by any stretch of imagination, but like the way I would put that is if 5 teams think that this is the number 5 prospect in the draft class, and another 25 think that he's number 15 in the class, we're probably going to have them somewhere around 13, 14, 15 to reflect the fact that there is that belief of both, but the general consensus is over here. Now, that doesn't mean, again, we see players in person, we watch video, we do a lot of, Ben has seen a lot of these players for years in a lot of cases. But Ben, like the thing that jumps out with that though is we have to do that balance also, which is that we're trying to, like, when we say like that, we want to reflect when a guy goes, like, yeah, there can be outliers where a guy goes way higher than our rankings or lower. But what we're trying to say when we do that is that's something that we at least hope that we've reflected. That's different than what the industry as a whole believes that where that player may line up.
Yeah, and that's even tricky to tease out ourselves sometimes, like industry consensus. I think it's easier to get, especially in the first round. Uh, but once you get beyond the very top obvious guys, right, like your Travis Bazanas, Nick Kurtz's last year, even like Braden Montgomery, um, there can be a wide range of opinions on these players. So there's a very big difference too between mock draft, where it's like, okay, we're hearing this team at number 5 overall is likely to take this specific player. Well, we're not saying he's the 5th best player on our board, but that's where we're hearing he's going to go. So there's a big difference too, just between the rankings and the mocks too.
You can stream live MLB games through FanDuel Sports Network. And if you use the promo code BASEBALL30, you can start it off with a 30-day extended free trial at FanDuelSportsNetwork.com/packages. Teams include the Atlanta Braves, the Detroit Tigers, Kansas City Royals, Los Angeles Angels, Miami Marlins, Milwaukee Brewers, St. Louis Cardinals, Tampa Bay Rays, and Cincinnati Reds. This offer expires 5/2/25, so get on it. $19.99 a month after free trial. Cancel during free trial to avoid charges. Eligibility restrictions apply. Visit FanDuelSportsNetwork.com for details.